I think we're live. Hello, Discord. Hopefully you can see me and hear me. Hi. This is the preview show for the Chinese Grand Prix, but this is the pre-show. So if you're watching this back and you don't want to listen to us rambling on about stuff to get warmed up, then that's absolutely fine. Go to the description and there'll be a show starts here text with a blue number. You click on that and it takes you straight to the beginning of the preview. So you don't need to complain about what's coming up. If you're listening live, then yes, I'm sorry, you are stuck listening to us because I like having a chat with my friends and jumping on. I don't always just want to talk about F1. And a lot of our patrons and stuff and people who join the live stream don't mind it either. It's a little bit of a radio zoo. It scratches that itch when I used to be on radio and complain about things and interact with people in a non-F1 way. So forgive me. And for those of you who say I shouldn't do it, I will say that does contravene my number one policy, which is doing whatever I want all the time. Matt's got kind of a similar ethos in life. You're old enough now to just not care what anyone says or thinks about what you do.
I am, and yet somehow it still seems like I do occasionally. It's very annoying. Just when I think I'm free, nope, they drag me back in.
It's that imposter syndrome, isn't it? I was chatting to some of my friends in their 20s, and they were talking about having fun on a night out, and how some people will be like, "Oh, that's lame. Why are you having fun?" And this one lady was like, "Yeah, I was trying to be set up with someone, and they were like, oh, this guy would be really good for you." But when they pointed over, she had decided to do the worm on the dance floor. And in her mind, she's like, that's crushingly embarrassing, but surely I should just be able to do the worm whenever I feel like it. But as you get older, you can just do the worm whenever you want.
Right. There are fewer consequences to worry about because more of your life has already been put together.
For worming. Yeah. You're at a point where you go, this is the finished article. There's no more room for self-improvement. This is, everyone around me has to accept this because my ability for personal growth growth has ended. And as you become a dad as well, you can be cringe and embarrassing because that is the default state of a father in his 40s.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost failing in your parental duties if you're not. If your kids need something to make fun of.
If they're not crushingly embarrassed of me, am I really a dad? Someone who's at the beginning of that journey and still thinks he's cool is Scott Stuffey Tuffy. Hello, Scott.
Hi, everyone. I'm cool.
Yeah, you still think of yourself as cool. I see that. I see you're still deluded.
No, I totally agree. As I'm getting older, like, that's the thing. I've got a little girl now. My job is now to be as embarrassing as possible. She's still not at the age yet, of course. She's still too young to understand embarrassment. But yeah, no, I agree. As you get older, it's like, who are you trying to impress?
Wait till you start doing the school runs because, like, we'd have fun in the car. Excuse me, as I'm just doing some adjusting to the scenes. We'd be having fun in the car, singing along to something, and then I'd drop her off at school. And if I continued singing it out the window, it would be no problem. But then it suddenly became a problem where she'd go, "Dad, shut up, no!" And that's when you realise that their friends' opinions is more important than your opinion of them. That will happen to you, Scott, I'm afraid.
I know, and I'm so looking forward to it.
It is a fun one. So, I don't know if any of you can pick this up, and I don't know whether I should confess to this, but I have had probably too many beers than you should have before a live stream. It's not my fault, Matt. It's not my fault. It was the other kids.
It's never your fault. That's the great thing about being a dad. There's always a cat or a child around to blame.
But it was totally unplanned, basically. Like, I had a nice game of tennis, and one of the people that were involved in that, they would, something was just a little bit off. And so Scott won't relate to this. You probably have had this already before me, is that at 45, everyone knows I've got teenage kids. Everyone knows I'm a professional in my trade. I've done my 10,000 hours. I'm an artisan in many ways. They start asking for your sage advice and they start looking to you for sort of comfort and support. And so I was being an emotional support human, and that emotional support human required a round of beer.
Well, sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good. So nice going. Congratulations.
But then
way to take one for the team.
And then it was like, oh, do you want another one? I'm like, well, no, because the car's here. Yeah. So I can't have another one because the car's here. Hang on. if I put my code in the machine and I get up in the morning and get it fairly early, of course, yeah, I'll have a half. A half is fine. And then another one, and then another one. And I slowly justified it to myself, which is, well, okay, I could do, but obviously that means I have to walk home now because I can't drive. And then it spiraled and people gathered round. And I don't think any of it is my fault. And also I'm a presenter, so I should get an exemption from not going to work with too many beers.
Yeah, well, that's sometimes it's part of the job as an influencer to influence regardless of your current state of sobriety.
I had a full plan though. Even if we'd had a couple of beers there, I could come home and I'd be home in plenty of time to have a nap, have a shower, and then come back on the stream. As it turned out, we all had food there and carried on. I don't know, Stuffy, for you, can you go to work with a few drinks? Because we've got a presenter here and a trumpet player.
No. Very
acceptable. How about a chartered surveyor? Is that acceptable?
No. Yeah, no, we're not allowed to drink on the job at all. Even, I mean, I can't say I've been to many lunches actually in my career. Obviously, I'm not out on site, but yeah, technically I'm working on a active construction site, even if I am in the office, on an on-site office. So yeah, no, alcohol is strictly prohibited.
When I used to work in defence though, they had that same thing. Like it was definitely frowned upon unless we were with Ministry of Defence people or decision makers. So if it was the person who was going to sign off on a contract or a regulation, and then we go, hey, do you know what? You don't want to be in the stuffy office. Let's go. Let's have some food. You're hungry, right? The food's on us. Let's see. We'll have a couple of beers, and then they've got a little side room. We'll have a meeting there. And that, honestly, that greases the wheels of meetings so much. You should try that as a chartered surveyor.
No, totally. I mean, I'm all for going out with clients and having some lunch and a drink, but yeah, it would mean you end up going home afterwards as well.
So you have worked drunk?
No,
you liar.
No, no, not in that role.
No. So I had a meeting with some people in LA, and by the way, today, as part of my having drinks, I did end up having a work meeting in the middle of that, and beer greases the wheels of decisions so brilliantly. Like it's a fantastic...
Loosens you up, takes the edge off.
Or I'm so bad at doing meetings and negotiations when I'm drunk that I just agree to everything and walk away thinking I nailed it.
I'm going to wait and see what's in that contract when it shows up. Yeah. I have agreed to wear a what on camera?
You'll get the payment come through and go, did I agree to that?
So Matt, this contract involves you, so there may well be some blowback that literally affects you. So sorry about that.
Fun times. Wouldn't be the first time you've sold me off for free.
No, definitely not. But also, was it yesterday? I had a meeting with some lovely people in LA over Zoom. And for me, it was evening vibes. And I was definitely like, oh, I've had enough of this day. All the people in LA were very lovely, but to them, this was their first meeting of the day. And they were like, let's attack this from every angle. The day has so much to offer. And the vibe mismatch was crazy.
Oh, that's brutal. I mean, LA, it tends to be a sunny, happy, chirpy place.
Yes.
A lot of times to begin with, just because, like, have you ever been there actually?
No, I was meant to go. 2 weeks ago, but I didn't go.
Imagine the most perfect weather you've ever experienced.
I can't. I'm British.
No, in Spain on vacation. Right. Now imagine that almost every day.
Oh, I would love
without
that.
fail.
I would love
it's
that.
In a very it's somewhere between 17 and 22.
Just all the
extremely
time.
low humidity, all the glorious sunshine you get by being right on an ocean. And I think it just does things to your brain after a while.
They were very smug about that as well. They were like, oh, you're in the UK. Oh, is it true that you've only had one day of sunshine in 2026? I'm like, yes, that is literally true. Where I am, we've had 2 days without rain in the whole of 2026 so far. And today the wind, so the wind has left the rain alone so far. So we've been just getting rained directly upon. And I didn't appreciate how much of a mercy that was until today's wind, when I had a 15-minute walk home because I had too many beers to drive. And the wind was just lashing the rain into my face. And that's just lovely.
Yes.
When you walk outside in your country and the air hurts your face.
I pretense that if you hear any weird noises in the background of when I'm speaking today, it is because, yes, there are high winds and my furniture that is on my balcony is not tied to the railings, so it moves up and down the balcony. So that is what, if you hear any weird noises in the background, that's what that is.
This did not happen to me, and it's not true at all that a long, long time ago when I lived someplace very, very high up and we had a balcony in an extreme storm with winds like getting close to, or if not over 100 kilometers an hour, a piece of furniture simply got picked up from a balcony and disappeared into New York City somewhere. That never happened.
We lost a trampoline. It went out into the back, but it didn't go into anyone else's garden. But yeah, we did have a trampoline get picked up and lifted off.
I just looked out the window and I'm like, oh, look, that chair sliding across. Oh my God.
So
it's gone. Where did it go?
But anyway, Scott, you need to say goodbye to these kind of meetings because really you should be a full-time content creator. You've got 18 billion people tuning into your live race reviews. Yeah, no, live watch-along, sorry.
I'm trying, mate. Yeah, we did our first brand deal last week, so it is hopefully the start. It gives you the confidence. Getting that first one over the line went very well. And
what did Mrs. Stuffey make of that brand deal? Were you able to like shove that in her face and be like, see, all my messing around on TikTok?
Yeah, she was very supportive along the way. She was helpful in getting it across the line because, what I've experienced is that it takes a lot of emails and a lot of back and forth to get
I meant
line,
your content creation like in general.
No, that's what
really?
I'm with the missus. Yeah, no, she's fully on board. She's like, this is what's going to buy the house eventually and get us out of our flat.
You're Team Stuffy. She's Team Stuffy. That's good. I'm Team Stuffy as well.
Exactly.
I would tune in for your alternate commentary. It's just that your accent is far too close to my in-laws' accent, and so
it's all right. It's fine. It's fine.
It makes me feel like they're about to put pressure on me for my political opinions. So I was like, oh, okay.
But yeah, if they're going really well, there's always that little concern because it's the first race of the season. Are you still going to get the viewership? And also, with it being so early in the morning, there's a little bit of like, I really hope.
And how did it go? What were the numbers like?
No, it went really well. We got
good.
Just over. I think it was 16,000 viewers, which is amazing for a 4 a.m. race. So yeah, but there's always that little like, are people still going to turn back up? Because I haven't been live for 2 months.
Yeah, and so we have that with Missed Apex as well. So I had not looked at the download figures. Me and my wife were sat waiting for my daughter to come out of a performing arts thing, and I was like, I've not checked. Tuesday is the big day where we can tell the download figures. And I said to her, I'm checking it, comparing it to Australia last year, and I'm either about to be really happy, meh, or devastated,
terrified. Yeah,
and it's a panic because you go, right, if no one's tuning in for the Australian Grand Prix, that is a really, really bad sign.
I think what it still showed is that even with all of the concerns about, and I know this is pre-show, but I think with all the concerns that people had about the upcoming season and even after qualifying itself, it still showed that people were very much interested in the race. And look, hopefully that still continues across the season.
Oh, no, we'll have a chat about that on one of the voice notes for sure, because, when I was walking around in like the civilian world with the muggles, people were way less negative than us in our little bubble. So that's definitely a topic.
I've got a group of people that know I'm the F1 guy at work, and they all came into me on Monday and went, "So
that was good.
What did you think?" And I gave my opinion, and I asked them, and I can tell you now, every person I spoke to, and I'm not being a shill here, but yeah, they're casual. They are casuals.
I would like to be a shill.
They are casuals, and they said that they really enjoyed the race. So,
Scott, be aware that during the show, I will ask you this again as if I didn't ask it. So don't say,
fine.
As we were saying before in the WhatsApp. Okay. First positions, everybody. First positions, remember your first lines. I tell them what to say. This entire thing is scripted, you know. It's
you haven't told me to say anything yet.
Oh, I even scripted for him to say, I never got a script or anything. I'm my own man. That's all part of the shtick, I promise. You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We live F1. Welcome to Missed Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. So, let's be friends. This is our Chinese Grand Prix race weekend preview, and it's a sprint race, which is good. I'm also going to play a lot of your reckons over WhatsApp voice note. The number is below in the YouTube, so save that. It's also in the show notes and in Discord, and we have 13 listener reckons on voice notes, which, just by fantastic coincidence, line up with the news stories we want to cover before we go into making our Chinese Grand Prix race predictions. We are an independent podcast produced in the podcasting shed with the kind support of our patrons and partners. We aim to bring you a race review before your Monday morning commute. We might be wrong, but we're first. I'm joined by the tire whisperer, Matt Trumpets. Hello, Matt.
Hey there, Spanners. I'm actually glad you brought up the tire thing because I got something, and I don't think anyone else that's not already kind of on a team is even talking about it yet.
So you have a deep insight into tire tactics, management, and strategy that the general public and journos don't have.
I think they will get there very soon. But yes, in fact, a thing is happening, and I suspect I know why. And I've talked to people who are industry experts about it, and I may be right.
Is it that
or not?
The cars aren't going through any corners fast enough to wear the tires out?
It's not wear, actually. It's cold graining. But yes, you are correct. The change in harvesting has significantly impacted. Sorry, we're getting into the show before we've introduced everybody. But yeah, it's made a big impact on how the tires react because you have way less downforce on the straights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your slower speeds through the corners. Yeah. And so suddenly, especially at the end of long straights, you're looking at being in a thermal window that is, I think they like to say suboptimal in the engineering community.
Well, we are joined by someone who probably doesn't need any introduction because his live race watchalongs are incredibly popular now. The guy with a YouTube channel that has 80,000 million people listening along live to his race commentary is Scott Stuffey Tuffy. Hello, Scott.
What a great introduction. Thank you, Spanners. That's the best one. That's the best one. Yeah, they're going very well. And even though there've already been ups and downs of maybe the energy deployment, that is, maybe I'm referencing that, of the season, I'm still positive about it. I try to keep a positive mind. And look, China's a very different race circuit with very different possibilities and potential outcomes.
Before we get to the WhatsApp voice notes then, let's just talk about some of the experiences we've had out in the wild outside of doing content creation. So at my tennis club, for example, like, I'm known as the F1 guy there, and people say, what do you think? Honestly, and I got messages from friends going, that's great, that's exciting, that's fun, when they saw Leclerc and Russell swapping. So I'm scared that we might just be in a bubble that is overly critical. Actually, when I went out in the world, Scott, people were saying, that seemed interesting, that was different.
Yeah, I got kind of two reactions, or kind of the same reaction. I think most people enjoyed the race from those that I spoke to who weren't as deep into the sport as I am, but it was noticeable how much slower the cars were going on the straights or how much speed they were losing, which they were a bit concerned about. And this is the thing, is that you've got obviously hardcore fans or long-term viewing fans who have understandably very valid concerns, myself included, about cars super clipping. There's nothing super about it down full throttle sections. And then you've got the casuals who just enjoyed watching the overtaking. And while personally I want to see more
overtaking,
exactly, but this is it. I think while these rules are complicated, or these new regulations are complicated, I think them being too complicated and the FIA or an F1 not showing us more information, because I'd love to see the battery mode more. I think that's essential for our viewing.
I don't think they wanted us to see the battery.
No, but and this is the thing, I think for many casual fans, the lack of information actually made it more exciting for them.
Agree.
And let's just for a moment consider that there is a bathwater and there is a baby. And here, if you look at the action, and even the drivers who weren't having a good time coping with all the brand new tasks they are forced to deal with, even they are like, well, yeah, you know, from an action point of view, it's pretty good. And frankly, you know, ignoring having to manage all the energy stuff, these cars are actually, they're kind of fun to drive. They do what they're supposed to do. They slide into corners. You get a little more of this, that, and the other. We're not that far off. And the thing that a lot of people overlook is, first of all, Albert Park is a it's an outlier track in terms of the energy budget.
Yes.
Most of the tracks are much better about energy than ours. So we've seen like one of the worst examples we could have to start with.
I disagree that the drivers are saying these cars are nice to drive. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think maybe 4 drivers are saying that these are nice to drive.
Let's have a quote though, because Alonso said, "Oh, there used to be a challenge that was really, really good. Now there's a challenge about where we charge and stuff, which I guess is fine, but I preferred the old one." Verstappen is very clearly complaining still and comparing it to Mario Kart. And if there isn't one single team social media admin that is brave enough to have their drivers playing Mario Kart as an interview feature for any of their brand partnerships, then you're all cowards. You must get them playing Mario Kart.
Well, it turns out that most of those people who are talking about driving the car are actually talking about driving the power units. I'm talking about the actual car, the actual balance of the car, the way it behaves when you drive it. And it is a lot better for the drivers. In fact, and this was not sought out by me, but came across in my research, none other than your friend and mine, Esteban Ocon, said, I think this is much more back to how it was probably like 2016, like the good cars in 2016, like the top cars. The way you slide, the way you can attack the corners, it's much more predictable and a lot nicer in terms of balance and also in terms of how the car rides overall. So there are good things going on here, but I think they're just being buried because all the teams are still fighting for political advantage with these regulations.
I think they genuinely don't like this. They generally do dislike them. I think, agreed, they do like the chassis and the aero regulations, and it's a bit of a shame because, yes, as it's been stated so many times already in just the few weeks this season's been underway, the power unit and the energy recovery is outdoing all of the good work that the aero regulations have done, because I think they've hit a real big sweet spot with them. And it's one of the main reasons why Lewis Hamilton is particularly very buoyant. Yes, he's flying more towards the front, bouncing. But he's got a car that handles the way that he much prefers compared to the boats that were the ground effect era cars. And of course, if a driver's going to be fighting more towards the front, then they are going to enjoy it more. I mean, I'm sure, yes, Max Verstappen is very critical, but I do think he wouldn't be as critical if the Red Bull was one of the fastest cars to start off with. He would still probably would complain, like we've seen Charles complain. But yeah, I'm still reserved a little bit on the overall experience of these cars, because we have one benchmark of data right now of actual racing at a circuit that, is at the lower end of the scale when it comes to energy recovery.
And there we agree. But I also think there is a real correlation between drivers' expressions of discontent with regulations and how they did in the actual race. And you can see Lewis, as you mentioned, even Russell's like, hey, we shouldn't just get rid of all these immediately, because I think he finally realized, oh, crap, I could win a championship if we don't change too much here.
Yeah.
And really the main bone of contention is, at this point amongst the drivers, is about the starting procedure. And the FIA has already said, we're going to take the data from 2 races. We got Melbourne, which is an energy poor race. We have China, which is a sort of standard of B flat race, energy wise. We're going to look at how it goes. We're going to look at what we think was good and bad. And then we might just rebalance some of these numbers a little bit, mainly because, and I think this is everyone's complaint, right, Spanners, it's the super clipping. That's what it is. It's driving everybody bonkers. If that didn't happen, and everything else we saw happen, if that one thing didn't happen, nothing else, no one would be complaining about this.
If they said, let's reduce the amount of battery power you can use by 2/3, so you're only using 33% of it, so it lasts till the end of the straight, and you don't get these weird overtakes because every time you press the throttle, it should have some battery power, and that percentage of battery power should be the same all around the lap. The fact that you suddenly go from 50-50 to 50-0 is the problem. And even if it's 70-30, if they reduce the power, if it's 70-30 all the way down the straight, that will solve that. If it's 70-30 for people out of every corner so you don't get the ghosting past each other, that solves the problem as well, I think.
Well, that's one of the things that they're going to discuss about implementing after China for Japan, because we have 2-week break to the race at Suzuka.
2 weeks.
I know. Well, make the most of it, because it could be 5-week gap from Suzuka to Miami if most likely Bahrain and Saudi are going to be cancelled. But anyway, there has been discussions about reducing the the battery effectiveness.
Yeah, so the amount,
so that the cars effectively go slower, but we'll see not really any of this.
It's the amount of battery that you can use in one go. So if it was just an ice and they were running out of petrol, you could say, okay, well, actually, you can only put the throttle to a third of the power, and let's see if that solves it. So you're doing that, but with the battery power, and that will kind of even everything out. They will be slower. The lap times may well suffer, but at least we won't get the fastest that are happening now. Right, guys,
but
go on. Go on,
I was going to say, but they'll still be quick. They just won't achieve 340 kilometres down a straight. But I don't need to see, I'd much rather see the back end of an F1 car get out when they're going around the corner, and with them going wheel to wheel. That's where I get excitement from, not how quick an F1 car goes down the speed trap, So I think, if that's going to solve it, do it. And Anthony Davison, just one last bit on this, is that I was watching a bit earlier, and Anthony Davison on Sky Sports did say, which I've also said as well, about the MGUH, but really this would have solved all the problems. And maybe we'll see it reintroduced in the next couple of years, because that would help the starts that they're complaining about, particularly George Russell, which we'll get on to, and this whole energy recovery.
Yeah, it's just important not to ruin the good bits, because there's one thing that we think should be better. And last point, don't forget how terrible the teams are with brand new tasks. I remind you all of the quali format that got tried out for half a minute, and the teams, they couldn't even figure out when they had to send drivers out to actually set their lap times. F1 teams are terrible with new tasks, and so we need to give them a little bit of time to work it out. Some of this, what you call farcical passing, will go away once the teams understand how stuff works, and the drivers too, a little bit better.
Let's hear from some of our patrons. Okay, I've been wanting to do some kind of call-in format for a long time. We have now, if you look at the screen in YouTube or in Discord or in the show notes, we have a WhatsApp number that I activate during live events and when we've got a show coming up. So you can send us a voice note, and the patrons have paved the way. We have a bunch of voice notes of what you reckon. So just tell us your name and tell us what you reckon. Don't ask a question. Tell us what you reckon. And this is the voicemail that kicked this off and motivated me to get into it. This is 1 minute. However, I will ask you in future, keep them under 20 seconds for a reckon. Here's number one.
Hello, apologies. I don't know if you guys are accepting WhatsApp voice
First off, don't apologize. Don't be sorry. Be better.
notes or anything like that. But I am a long-time listener, first-time caller. Basically, my name's Ravi.
Hello, Ravi.
And I was just wondering what the Missed Apex panel's thoughts were on Ferrari's continued decision-making woes. It's clear that since Riccardo Adami is no longer Lewis Hamilton's race engineer, communication seems a bit more strong, a bit more concise, and he sounded
they won't all be
a bit more secure with what he was hearing in response. However, it's clear from the calls with the virtual safety cars today that there is a decision-making culture at Ferrari that needs to be improved. So
Thank you very much for that, Ravi, and thank you for giving me the motivation, the kick to get these voice notes going. We also have some other Ferrari voice notes. So I'll just play them now. They're shorter.
Hey, Spanners and team, Imran here. I reckon that all of Ferrari's lifting coast last year was actually secret preparation for the 2026
They knew
power regulations.
they were ahead of the game. So let's look at at Ravi's comment first, which is, I think, honestly, people were very, very harsh about what was a very difficult decision in Australia. And the more I think about it, the more I think it was reasonable. I honestly, like, Scott's shaking his head. I think the rest of the grid lucked into not realizing that it was a one-stop and had that one-stop put in their hands when they thought it was a two-stop.
Right. How long have we been coming to Albert Park for?
85 years.
How many times, how many times in those 85 years has it been a two-stop?
That's a good point.
On the Pirelli tyres anyway, it has always been a one-stop. These tyres, yes, while some of the teams may have seen some degradation and some of the teams' drivers will probably chewing into their tyres a bit more because they were, I don't know, happy on the throttle. I mean, I don't know if you saw Max Verstappen angrily step on the throttle and do burnouts at the end of the race. But
no, I didn't.
Yeah, he wasn't very happy coming into the pit lane at the end.
Oh, no. I've got to look it up now.
But I think Ferrari were too focused on what the data was telling them rather than just looking out on track with their eyes and looking at what the Mercedes team were doing. And I think it's also maybe a belief in this race in particular that they were probably just happy finishing third and fourth and fighting with the Mercedes and not truly believing that they could go for the race win. Because I think if you put Red Bull in that situation, they would have made a pit stop and they would at least have split that strategy.
And yeah, here you make a very good point. We are all taking it that Ferrari made a decision to not compete, and they were wrong because they had bad information and also because they are classically not the best at rapidly evolving situations. Is that a good way to put it? But it could well be that they simply took one half a look at everything and said, you know what? Let's not worry about the peaks. Let's limit our valleys here. And rather than put someone into a two-stop who could have otherwise completed a one-stop, they said, we'll just drive our safe race, take whatever we get, take the data, and maybe we do a better job next time. They didn't put it like that, but that would be the only explanation I would accept for, at a minimum, not splitting strategy, especially because Mercedes confident enough to double stack onto that hard tire. I still remain convinced that Pirelli's tire modeling is just off every so often, and they really believe it, but it's just every other team doesn't, and they do fine not believing it. So maybe their car wouldn't have made it. Maybe they're absolutely right about it, but I would have liked to see them try.
And I don't know if you hear on the radio messages back, but Bono said to Kimi, do opposite to Hamilton, like do the opposite to Lewis. Yeah. And so they were committed to splitting their strategy to try and do what they can to get one up over on the Ferrari. And of course, double stacking them was the right decision because Fred Vasseur said they saw that it was going to be a two-stop. But as I said, even with new tyres, even with these brand new cars, how often has it ever been a two-stop at Albert Park? And you saw those Mercedes take those tyres 46 laps, those hard compound tyres. So nothing has really changed. I mean, Albert Park maybe not the best barometer for it for many reasons.
It's been happening loads though, Scott. How many times last season did we have Mike Caulfield in our chat going, this is one stop, they're going to be able to make it? Yeah. And the teams just didn't seem to account for that. So they seem to have a blind spot or a fear that they're going to run out of tyres.
I think what's going to happen this year is very similar to what Lewis did at Mercedes, where he starts to take strategy into his own hands. You saw him straight on the radio, why did we not split the strategy? And then tell him, don't bring me in. Don't bring us in together. Like, I think you're going to see, if Lewis Hamilton gets his confidence back, you're going to see him get that confidence on the radio to call his strategies mid-race as well from the cockpit, which he did so often at Mercedes. But there's there's clearly
worked well for Sainz when he did it.
Yeah, well, exactly. And also, I think there's definitely a fundamental issue with them just not looking out on track at what's happening
but
just focusing fully too much on the data.
I honestly feel better, even like straight away. I know Santi is not the permanent race engineer, but I felt like he was at least driving that race with Lewis Hamilton.
Clear, concise information. That's all a driver needs. And I know, and I saw a typical from a typical newspaper in the UK that loves to jump on the Lewis Hamilton bait.
Daily Mail, I assume.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I wasn't going to name them, but
Nope,
and they
Daily
went,
Mail.
Lewis Hamilton snaps at race engineer and
shut
tells him
up.
to leave me alone.
No, he
And
didn't.
it's
He said, "Thank you very much. Leave me to it." He was like, "Thank you. That's
Exactly
great
that.
information, but I'm good." That was the most polite radio conversation.
And I
ever.
looked in the comments. I was like, okay, let's see what the commenters like to say, because they're not very positive of Lewis on those articles. And in fairness, every single one of them was like,
good. That's
excuse
not
me,
what
he said
happened,
nothing
yeah.
of the sort and called out the journalist who wrote that article. So, but yeah, very positive steps in that relationship. But I called it before the start of the season. Even if they have a great car, the thing that will let them down is the strategy.
No,
and we got
nothing.
it in the very first race.
Nothing can stop them, Matt. Nothing.
You might be right, because China is a different track. It's going to be much better for them. And I, for one, am very excited to see the difference now between the Mercedes and the Ferrari.
I was going to say one thing that will help them in China is that there's a sprint race, and you don't have to make a pit stop in a sprint race. So there's no need
no
for strategy.
They did well. They won last year. They won last year's
did.
China's sprint race, and also like Hamilton is 15-2 on the odds. Be gamble aware if the fun stops. But 15-2. That's more than 7-1, and I've got odds on that. And so I was explaining to my wife,
6.5 to 1. Your spanner, your maths isn't very
15
good.
to 2.
We'll let you off.
is 7.5.
No, you
1.
said. Did you say 13-2?
13-2 was the odds we put in the WhatsApp chat, but I actually got 15
Oh, that's
2
fine.
on a
Sorry.
website.
Okay.
No, that's
no,
fine.
you are correct then. Sorry.
Incorrect challenge. So I explained to my wife how we had basically free money because Lewis was going to win the Chinese Grand Prix, and she seemed very impressed. She seemed very excited. So yeah. So I've put my money on Lewis Hamilton this weekend, but I will say that I have been thrown by my own show notes. So yeah, Lewis Hamilton has a chance. Feels very positive. Leclerc's odds are even lower because going on last season, you have to kind of go, well, to be fair, he was behind Leclerc last season, and as positive as he was, did finish fourth behind Leclerc. And as much as Hamilton insists, oh yeah, but 14 more laps and I'd have got him. Yeah.
I think he was just having so much fun driving a car that didn't drive like last regulation set, that he was just like, you know what? I would just do some more laps here, even if we're not racing. But you know why they're really not going to win? It's because they're bringing their trick wing to China.
Right. Okay. And we have a voice note about that as well. Almost as if Matt knew.
This is Paul Adams from Lexington, Kentucky,
Hello,
in the
Paul.
US of A. I reckon that the Macarena wing will only be deployed on certain tracks, maybe just the ones with the longest straights like Baku or China or Monza. And it'll give them a huge advantage on those straights, on those tracks, but everywhere else, they'll still be second best.
Okay.
So it won't be enough to get Lewis his 9th title.
Firstly, stop with the negativity. But I honestly think this should not be called the Macarena wing. I don't know. That comes from the song, Macarena.
Yeah, that was because Fred Vasseur called it the Macarena wing, and Lewis actually was. There's, I think it's on an F1 Instagram post. He said, "Who's called it the Macarena wing? It's the flip. It's the flip flap wing.
No, not the flip flop wing. It's the rotisserie wing. It's very clear. Have you ever not been to like your rotisserie in the supermarket and you go into like Tesco's and on the back they've got the chickens rolling around?
I did see a meme of that actually. Someone replaced the rear wing with a rotisserie chicken. But I totally agree with the point there. This is not a rear wing that is going to be implemented at every race circuit because of the time it takes to flip, and because of for a portion in that rotation period, it effectively acts as an air brake. So I think the reason they didn't run it at Albert Park is probably because there's not very high braking zones. You're not really braking in a straight line. Like if you've got that open, you need to look at where the straight mode zones are. And one of those, there was 5 of them, wasn't there, at Australia. But where they're not really hard braking zones, that transition of it flipping back to a normal position, a closed position, is going to give more instability to the rear rather than it will be at like Shanghai here, where you've got that very long back straight, braking in a straight line. So
it's really even simpler than that. At any track like Albert Park, you've already got a reduced amount of harvesting you can do per lap. And one thing that we would all agree on this wing does is increase the amount of drag momentarily when you're coming in. So you're reducing the amount of energy you can harvest, costing yourself more energy at the same time on a track where you don't have full harvesting potential like we do at China. So yes, I agree. You are only going to see this wing where it makes math energy budget sense. I guess that's probably exactly how they say it in the F1 offices.
Yeah,
that seems completely clear.
That's
but
in the
also,
regs. That phrase is in the regs exactly. I think. Yeah.
But that's also why it was not ever going to be the difference. Ferrari's advantages are on tracks with more turns, more stops. That's their biggest advantage, and that's rooted in the nature of how they've chosen to size their turbocharger relative to the other teams.
But you say it causes more drag. It's also got a larger rear slot gap than the standard rear wing. So on the tracks that have got long straights like Baku, like Monza, like Shanghai, surely that's going to help them increase their top speed.
But why is that better than Audi's one that just drops away and disappears?
Because there is still an element. Is it the central element? Is still there? I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I like the Audi. I like the Audi one.
It's how obviously the rest of the air travels over the car. Isn't it? I mean, I don't know if you've seen it this week. Not touching on the rear wing itself, but Ferrari. There's been images of them adding these 2 little. I don't know what they are, like winglets. I'm going to call them winglets on the side of the center of the halo on the cockpit to direct the airflow over the driver's helmet. Effectively, that's what they've done. Something so small that may help reduce drag.
Okay, I've got another little voice note here on the wing. There was another Ferrari wing reckon.
Hey, this is Kevin from Syracuse, and I reckon that Ferrari brings their Macarena wing to China, and this decreases their straight line deficit, and we see a Ferrari 1-2 in the sprint and the main race.
That is very similar.
On merit.
On merit. Thank you very much for that. I love these voice notes, by the way. This is an absolutely fantastic idea. By the way, just so you know, if you leave a voice note, it is not me screening these. So if you want to hurl abuse at me, you are just screaming it at a random person who has kindly volunteered to help us. So, yeah, that's great. I mean, Ferrari 1-2 dominance and echoing, I think, what you were saying, Scott, about getting a straight line advantage.
Yeah, I think I'm super intrigued. As I said at the top of the show, I'm super intrigued to see how this circuit, which is very different to Albert Park, and what we saw at Albert Park from Ferrari's performance to them. I think in qualifying, that gap was exaggerated because of the battery issues that every team had. I think that gap is a lot closer in qualifying. And then, I don't know if you've listened to the Ferrari interviews, they're still very positive about their chances, but they're still downplaying the gap in performance. They know it's closer, but they're still dwelling on it was 8 tenths. We haven't found 8 tenths performance in 4 days. So I think it's not going to be plain sailing for Mercedes this weekend. At least
I honestly think Ferrari have got a bit more than they showed in Australia.
I think a lot of that 8 tenths was Ferrari being on shredding mediums and Mercedes making absolute hay with brand new hard tires that were going to go the distance and not be a problem.
Were you proud of me? I made that point on the race review.
I am proud of you.
Staying out on those mediums it cost them more than not pitting under the VSC, like that free half a pit stop thing. They actually lost more time by trying to conserve those mediums.
Yeah, if you ignore that section of the race, once Ferrari was on the hard tires, there wasn't really a lot in it pace-wise between the two of them. And assuming Ferrari don't mess up the tire strategy, which I'm sorry I said that now. Apologies.
Why?
Why did I do that? Then I think we do see a much closer race and much more exciting too, because all the teams who could potentially win will be on the same strategy.
So there's one more Ferrari one, but I think we might save that for later if we've got time. This is probably one for Matt. It's about active aero.
Hey up, Chris G here.
Northerner.
This week I've been mostly reckoning active aero is no more artificial than that old-fangled DRS. See you later.
Okay, firstly, fantastic car noise, but that was more of a V12, I think, whereas I prefer the kind of screaming of the era that I grew up in. So I think, Chris, unfortunately, I think you've misunderstood perhaps what active aero is. There is still this big misconception with people who've not followed the off-season, Matt, that active aero is somehow what DRS is now.
Well, so from a really super duper technical point of view, they are both drag reduction systems activated by the drivers. Funny. So I will hand you that. It is an expansion of the drag reduction we saw in the previous regulation set. However, it does not serve the same sporting purpose that it previously did. That's now been supplanted by what's being called overtake mode, which allows you to deploy more energy to higher speeds before having to ramp down the battery, in essence.
Sorry, that's my what. So I haven't figured out how to have my WhatsApp notifications off and also be able to play the voice notes from my computer. So apologies for that. But yeah, Scott, like they're not serving the same purpose. Like the active aero is not an overtaking aid.
Yeah, as exactly that. You just took the words right out of my mouth.
Sorry.
That's all right. I was going to elaborate on what Matt said. It's not an overtaking aid. It's every single driver, every single lap, unless the FIA say that there's low grip levels, has straight mode activated at the tip of their fingers with a press of a button. And in relation to the artificial comment, I agree. I think DRS, when that first got introduced, if anyone wasn't watching the sport back then, I think it was 2011 it got introduced. It caused a massive uproar. So many people were claiming F1's artificial, but what are regulations? Regulations change so often to keep the racing close, and you could say that's artificial as well. And we want to see close racing. So while we have had complaints about the current regulations and the battery power split, I don't personally have an issue with having an overtake mode and so forth.
No, but the problem is that people are thinking that when the flaps open, it's an overtake mode, whereas it isn't. That has been replaced by the battery power, which we don't have access to. We used to have a visual.
And we have two battery power modes available, boost and overtake. Yeah. And I still don't quite know when boost is available, because I thought boost was something that I thought there were only two modes that you switch in and out to, but it turns out there's AI in control of the deployment mode as well. It's just, which is a bit confusing.
So I've been told off for this. It's not AI, it's
machine learning.
Machine learning, right? Yeah. Okay, fine.
It's a little different than what there's a popular conception of AI as being like Chat GPT. This is like not in any way, shape, or form.
Same family. I don't care what any nerds say.
We all know what we're talking about. We're talking about LLMs, large language models, guessing machines. So very quick guessing machines that can put data together quickly. However, it didn't work in Australia. So it clearly let down Ferrari in qualifying. It let down McLaren as well the whole time. And I don't know if that was responsible for the Red Bull lockup of Verstappen. Whether they just decided, right, go into harvesting mode now. I don't know whether it has control over harvesting mode, which is a horrible conversation to have. It's like, oh, was that the driver or was that the large language model thing that has just been invented in the last 2 years and is now everywhere?
But no, this is a problem that Honda had with Fernando back in Spa. Right, he drove through that corner and the car didn't know where he was anymore because he drove it so differently in qualifying than he had been doing in practice. It had learned and mapped the energy. And the only difference, if there is a difference now, the only difference is they're able to put it on the actual chip in the actual car to balance the battery better and more efficiently, which is progress and probably pretty useful to automakers one way or the other. But I'm digressing. You asked about boost and overtake and the difference. There's always been a boost mode. And what that is essentially is I am allowed to manually deploy energy from my battery when I, the driver, choose to. We saw it often used to defend against DRS overtakes in the previous regulation sets. Overtake mode. Sorry, go ahead.
No,
yeah, I see Spanners has a question.
Based entirely on iRacing. So
Okay.
I thought you could either charge the battery or deploy the battery. So you're either harvesting energy, in which case you weren't using the battery, or
Same
you were
here.
deploying the energy, in which case you used it all.
But that is also, and I've read a lot of the explanations beforehand in the lead up to this. I think that's also the FIA's issue and F1's issue with the way that they've explained how boost mode and recovery mode was. Like, as far as I was aware, Span is exactly the same. Heading into this season, there were 2 battery modes, which was boost and recovery.
Yeah.
You're either in one or the other, and which are manually controlled.
Yeah, the
and
driver
then
picked
you have
those,
the
yeah.
overtake mode, which is the extra energy you have,
Yes.
which is replacing DRS. But apparently that's not the case. And we come to Australia and everyone's saying, oh, yeah, well, it turns out that machine learning controls the general deployment of the battery when the drivers aren't deciding.
Yeah. So Matt will set us straight. So the thing that the AI now is doing is where the driver used to go either charge or deploy. The manual activation is what used to be KERS, which is a very separate go fast, push to pass button. DRS is gone, but we do have active aero, which is nothing to do with overtaking. That's just to help all the cars reduce the drags down the straights so that they'll have more power available overall. The confusion is understandable.
Right. So I think the best way to approach this, since I am renowned for being able to put things very simply and not use complex sentences and long, nuanced thoughts.
Yes, of course. Yes.
I will start with what we currently have. There is boost mode. That means the driver manually deploys battery power that they have in their battery when they choose to. And the reason we don't worry about boost versus a harvest mode, because you're not going to apply boost in a braking zone, for example. Not going to happen. Overtake mode is different because it allows you to deploy more energy per lap and to harvest more energy per lap when you're within 1 second of someone you are trying to pass. So there you have a sporting advantage because you can, the ramp down for the regular rules. There are rules about when you can use the battery and to what speed, by the way. That's what I'm talking about. Normal rules around 290, 300 kilometers, it starts to ramp down. It goes to like, it goes well over 300 if you are in overtake mode. They actually publish a graph of it if you want to see it in the FAA official documents. It is very stark. However, that means you have to have enough power to really take advantage of it. That's the tricky bit. And that's why it's actually a less certain overtake by a lot compared to DRS, which, you know, how many times we complain about DRS passes?
Yeah.
As far as the previous
Yeah. But DRS solved a problem, which was people getting stuck, faster cars getting stuck.
Right.
When really they should have been able to overtake. So let's do DRS so that they can overtake. I have got a regen question here, Matt.
Okay.
This is Tom from New York.
Hello, Tom.
I reckon the increased energy regen in Shanghai will lead other teams to be much closer to Mercedes this race. And due to that, at the meeting afterwards, Formula One won't do anything to change the rules to cut their lead.
Yeah, I think it's bang on. I think F1 totally have looked at the feedback from Australia and gone, uh-oh. Oh no, let's get fixing things. So Matt, you had told us pre-season that there was an option to allow them to regen more. And my understanding at that time was, I guess maybe Audi and Honda didn't want that because they did not have the regen capabilities.
Possibly. I was just given a number during testing that at Bahrain, for example, a theoretical limit of 12 megajoules of harvesting could occur.
And
now,
it was
what I
8
think
in Australia, I think.
No, 7.
7, right?
And the reason that number goes down, you're like, why does it go down? Is to keep the teams from doing all of the super clipping. What you really want to do is match the amount of harvesting you're allowed to do with more or less what you would pick up by lift and coast and breaking into corners and maybe occasionally maybe an extra 50 meters of, okay, so I'm just going to run the internal combustion and charge the battery 50 meters till I get to my braking zone. They haven't really been able to do that math fully yet. Part of what they're gathering now is data that might help them pick, better targets. Because really, if you got rid of, we said at the top of the show, you get rid of super clipping, I think people have run out of things to complain about unless they're drivers or New Yorkers, because we always have things to complain about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if we touched upon how people in our daily lives have, how they took the racing last weekend. Well, fans online very much differently, of course, because I think under every single F1 social media post, F1 have been hiding replies because people have been so critical about it. But I agree. I think the super clipping goes. I mean, none of us as fans want to see F1 cars getting slower halfway down a straight.
Turn 9
it's just not what
was
we
horrible,
want.
Scott. Turn 9 was
yeah,
just crushing.
I mean, everyone can agree with that. It's not what we want to see. But F1, going back to Mercedes' advantage and the comment, the voice note there, yes, F1 is not... The last thing that they want is the complaints that we're currently seeing from everyone, as well as a team dominating as large of a potential advantage that we think it is after Australia. They will do everything that they can to try and reduce that gap and at least make it competitive. Because if there is a championship battle between two different teams, especially if one of them is Ferrari, that will paper over the concerns that people have for at least this season.
If there's a battle, that will definitely paper over the cracks. And you think it's the FIA that will want to hold Mercedes back. But is it not Mercedes themselves, according to this WhatsApp voice note?
Hi, Eric here.
Hello, Eric.
I reckon that Mercedes is still sandbagging. They are still hiding performance, and they're not fully unleashing it because they will otherwise be in much more trouble. And the other teams can activate that clause that they get extra development.
Yes.
So that's my reckon.
So Matt or Stuffy will tell us about the development clause, but Mercedes do have a history of this. And by the way, that's very clearly a Dutch accent and therefore anti-Mercedes. They have done it in the past. Do you remember, Matt? We were talking to Summers in like 2014, 2015, and he was talking about how... Do you remember? Yeah.
Did you just ask me if I remembered something that happened over a decade ago with a serious intent?
I
Really?
remember Summers saying basically they had a drawer full of updates that they could just pull out at any point, and that they were very conscious about their domination and the criticism of the sport because of their domination. Now, this is a slightly different situation. I don't know. I think they put in an honest performance, to be honest, in the race. Obviously, towards the end of the race, they would have managed the gap. So, yeah, I don't know. Are Mercedes still sandbagging, Matt?
If they are by any serious amount, it would surprise me. And here's why. The new engine tests do come in before the end of the season. And if you grant that Toto telling you that the engine is always legal means that it's legal now, and they'll make a change so it's legal after the test, then the potential advantage they enjoy with how they've engineered the compression ratio, sorry for bringing that back up, will go away rapidly. So I would be, you want to make hay while the sun is shining. And if you're Mercedes right now, it's not just shining. It is the middle of summer. There is not a cloud in the sky. You're on the beach at 8 a.m. with 7 cases of beer and all of your friends. It's unreal if you're Mercedes right now. So
Mercedes being on the wrong, Ferrari being on the wrong side of the strategy meant that ultimately Russell didn't have to push.
Right.
So he could, and when there was a brief moment, about 4 or 5 laps, wasn't there, where Ferrari started to push and they could increase their pace, and Mercedes instantly matched it, and the Ferraris were like, oh no, oh well, never mind. It's almost like face saving, isn't it? Like when you're trying to catch up with your dad, like, Dad, I can beat you, and then your dad just sort of almost walks away, and you go, oh, I wasn't even trying to. I wasn't trying to race.
I wasn't really trying.
Yeah, I'm split on that. I think they probably had more pace than they had to show, but also there was potential for Ferrari to push them a little further and make them show it. Right, let's move on. Hey, we've got some more Mercedes ones, Matt, unless you've got something pressing.
Well, we can wrap it into the next Mercedes discussion.
Yes.
There's a very good reason why this kind of sandbagging is being discussed right now, and it has to do with the regulations.
And I think it might be this.
It's David, and I reckon
Hello, David.
Mercedes is holding out on their customer teams, mostly because Zach Brown basically said so, but the pace difference is pretty shocking. Maybe they just didn't give them a key to their secret compression chamber.
All right, Matt. Is there anything in Stella's lamentations that they don't have a close enough relationship with HPP, and therefore they're losing out to the works team?
A bit. Can I say a bit?
Sure.
So you remember this. We were around for this. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, one day, was it Lotus, was about to win a race at Spa and beat Vettel. And magically, the Mercedes power unit engineer said, oh, hang on a second. Can I see that keyboard? Typed in a key, and suddenly the whole car was faster.
Oh, yes.
Turns out there was things Mercedes granted to themselves, wouldn't give to customers on the grounds that, well, you know, they might abuse it and it would be unreliable. Therefore, we are protecting our customer. And once the FIA got wind of this, they said, cough, cough, a nice try, buddy. And they passed a whole bunch of rules that essentially meant that the manufacturer team cannot play those games. Whatever they run, the customers can run. And that's been fine. Fast forward to today, and I believe they absolutely have the same power unit and they have exactly the same modes. What they don't have is the same software optimizing how to regenerate and how to deploy energy. And that might fall outside the stricter boundaries of the power unit rules that currently exist. So essentially they said, here, have this power unit. Mercedes customer teams are like, okay, now how do we make this work? Mercedes, meanwhile, has spent 3 years figuring it out, and they have a massive head start and a massive advantage. And it's interesting to note that in my reading about this, Ferrari customer teams do not have this kind of complaint about Ferrari. So either Ferrari wasn't as clever, or they've just said, okay, yeah, we can see that you're struggling with this. Here, think about trying some of this stuff while you're writing your own code.
I'm going to be very cynical now as I am getting older.
Getting older, yeah, much older.
I'm going to put maybe a hypothetical out here that, look, who won the last 2 constructors' titles with a Mercedes engine? McLaren. Who suffered for the last 4 years in the old regulations? Mercedes. The last thing that you want as the works team is to have a customer team competing for you for the world title for this brand new set of regulations. And I bet there is, okay, maybe not skullduggery, but I bet you there is the absolute bare minimum that they are doing to be a works team to their to supply to their customer teams. And it's down to a certain extent, yes, McLaren and that to deal with it, but it's like maybe Mercedes didn't give McLaren their engines until the very last day. And but things like that will help just give more of an advantage to the works team and put their customer team maybe a race behind. And in the grandstanding of the whole season, that could be very important.
So let's use the rule of charity. And if I was to negate any nefarious things, so if I was to be the kindest possible thing towards Mercedes is no, they are not actively sabotaging their customer teams. But what if there is just an inherent advantage to knowing and working with your engine supplier who is within your own realm, and you get a big time advantage? You understand that actually, oh, this is particularly sensitive to heat, so we can't do a tight package, or actually cooling's not an issue with this engine, therefore you can have a very tight package. So there could be things like that that are just inherently easier if you're a manufacturer team. And then when McLaren go, hey, is there any, information about whether it prefers being hot or cold? You say, what you do is you plug this thing in here, you plug that thing in there, and then you press the start button. Good luck for the season ahead. And I wonder if that is just always the case. It's just because Mercedes was so bad with the aero in ground effect Oh, curse you! What's up? Is it one of you two who's got WhatsApp? It would be better if I could blame one of you two. No, so it could just be that, yeah.
We are checking.
During the ground effect era, they just weren't able to have the engine advantage show up in the aero because of the porpoising, etc. But I think there is just an inherent advantage to being a works team. And when's the last time a customer team beat the works team? Really struggling to think of an example.
The last 2 years?
No, yeah, the last 2 years. So before that, Scott, I very clearly meant before that.
Do you mean like a straight out battle for the championship?
So when did you have so Red Bull, Renault were winning championships, but they were winning those championships before Renault rebought the Enstone.
It's always been one or the other, hasn't it? I can't remember. I mean, we've got Mike Caulfield in the chat right now. Maybe he has a better history than we do.
Renault were definitely in during some Verstappen championships. Oh, no, I don't know.
15?
No, I don't
But I
think
mean, we've never had... I'm struggling to think off the top of my mind where we've had the works team and the customer team fighting out for the championship directly. It's always been either the works team fighting, say, another team, or it's the customer team fighting another works team. Do you know where I'm coming from there? So there's not necessarily like that inherent direct advantage unless my F1 history is not that great. But I think you have to go back some way for that to happen.
No, it's definitely an advantage to be able to build your chassis around, especially these much larger engine units. And I think Mercedes will have looked at last season and gone, oh, this is horrible. The last 2 seasons go, no, that's horrible. And the thing is, it does just bring up the fact that it is harder to be a customer team and take a customer power unit. And I think it's always been that. But McLaren have a little bit of a look of shell shock amongst them because the last few seasons they were able to take that customer engine and go and win championships. And then suddenly they're looking at how the Mercedes works team is managing. And I'm sure they can look at all the traces and the data and going, oh, wait a minute. Well, what have we done?
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. They took a look and they were like, oh, wow, what the, huh? And as far as I can tell from the driver interviews, it's not that they are doing, Mercedes that is, doing anything illegal. And the situation as it is normal. Like, oh yeah, normally we get it and we're a little bit behind. We have to work to catch up because we don't take everything from Mercedes. They don't tell us everything. But Stella's very specific complaint suggests that there's some information that would help them solve this quicker. That Mercedes is saying, no, you're actually not entitled to that information as a customer. So it seems like there's some gray area that is at the heart of this. And because the disparity is so painfully obvious, because McLaren being a championship winning team, and they will admit, like, look, we're behind in other areas too. It's not like if you gave us this, we'd suddenly be matching Mercedes. That's not the case. But because they are so far off compared to last season, it looks really bad. And as we all know in Formula One, if it looks really bad, you just might get something done about it, like bendy wings and et cetera and so on.
I think what we're seeing with this is just, to me, this is just a clear indication of how much Toto Wolff and Mercedes are going about winning for this regulations, at least being that team to set the benchmark and being the team to beat to start. Because, yeah, maybe the relationship was in the last 2 years of the regulations, but they were a bit more forthcoming with their power unit because Mercedes already started that regulation set a year behind, effectively, with obviously the first car in 2022. So the only kind of way they could get some positive PR for their engine, or just Mercedes in general, was to have their name attached to still the constructors' titles and the drivers' champion in 24 and 25. And now maybe it's a bit of McLaren expecting that working relationship to continue, but with it being a brand new regulation, there's been a reset there, and it's like, no, now you're only getting the bare minimum of what we have in the contract and that the regulations allow, because now it's we all start from the start line again.
Let's go towards more sort of China predictions. That came in hot. That came in loud. Okay, so we've got some more listener voice notes. By the way, these are great. So make sure you take hold of that number. If you're listening, pause now. I'm about to give it to you. It's UK. So 0044. Matt, do Americans understand that? If I say 0044?
Plus 4.
Mostly, it's like it's a country code, but just
so the country
it's an
code
area
is
code.
0044 or plus 44 7974. No, sorry, this shows how much I don't know it. 794747. Oh, that's pretty good. 1840. And you send us a voice note on WhatsApp and just say your name at the beginning and try to keep it under 20 seconds for that reckon. And we'll try and feature it on shows, and not the race reviews, but certainly for new shows and specifically for mailbag shows. We'd love your feedback. Bear in mind, it is not me that is farming these. So if you want to send me some hate, the best place to send me hate is on Twitter, X, and Blue Sky. Then I'll get the hate directly. Otherwise, you're just sending hate to someone who is very kindly managing that phone number for us. So we're getting more into the predictions. We've done Mercedes nerfing their customers. So I think this is a Lewis prediction for China. Let's press play here.
Hello, this is Maria Glados.
Maria.
I reckon that if Lewis doesn't beat Charles in China, he won't do it anywhere else this year. Maybe with the exception of Silverstone.
Oh, Maria in our Patreon chat from Greece. A Russell fan. Can you believe such a thing? A George Russell fan. My son asked me, did George Russell fans love their children? And I said, no, son. Not like we do. Not like we do. So, basically, I think they're saying, Maria is saying, this is Lewis's best chance to go and attack Leclerc. And this, Scott, this is a Hamilton-friendly track.
Yep, it is. It's always one that he's had success at. And you could argue last year he had the better of Charles, of course, with the sprint pole and sprint win. And then we know how much of a balls up they made for the race. And Charles seemed to be quicker by shedding his front wing end plate than he did with it. But we know that they had a double DQ. Yeah, I mean, look, it is. I don't agree with Maria's comment there that if he doesn't beat him here, he won't beat him for the rest of the season. It's a very long season, 24 races. Well, it'd probably be 22 this year.
Plus
but
6
still,
sprints.
with many sprint races. And look, let's say, they are fighting for a world title. Lewis has been there and done it. Fought for a title. How many times? Is it 10 times he's fought for a world title?
I think so.
So that's a lot of seasons to be in that mindset.
Yeah, he won 8 out of those 10. So, he knows what it's like. Whereas Charles, to be fair, I feel like more and more he's becoming a very complete driver, and a lot of the concerns I had about him have sort of washed away. But then again, we haven't then seen him take that next step to a title fight. If he's in the title fight, we might find him having a 2024 Lando Norris kind of season.
There is a prediction I have for Charles, and is that this year, if he's in for the title fight, he will crash out at least once this season with another driver, because there is something that I do not like about Charles's driving, and it is he's moving under braking. Now, George, he didn't move under braking in Australia, but George wasn't happy with his aggressive. Yeah, but Charles has a habit of moving under braking, and when he gets angry, in particular. I mean, he was very aggressive with his defence with Lewis multiple times last year.
Did you remember
there is going to be a big crash with him, and I think that will be a pressure moment that obviously you can't afford to lose that many points this season, and that's why I think that's one of the reasons why I think Charles and Lewis will win a few races this year. I don't think it would just be China.
Do you remember 2019 Monza? I think it was 2019. And it was going into, so you go through the first bunch of chicanes, the safety chicane, and then you go.
Was it where he drove Lewis onto the grass?
Yeah. You go around,
and he got away with it.
Curva Grande, and then Lewis was there up the inside, but not too far, and then Leclerc just went to the outside and took him out. And
then they didn't give him they didn't give him a penalty because
they gave him a black and white flag.
Do they? Would you really want to give him a penalty for that in front of the Tifosi?
So at that time, the public opinion was like, "Oh, Lewis, how could you for poor little Charles?" Leclerc? Like how? Yeah, I think it would be different. That would be judged differently in a title fight. I think people would say, "Hey, you chopped across him in the braking zone, like you said, moved under braking." So I think that would be judged differently in that context.
Yeah, and a comment here, Tasia just says Charles is the best when it comes to wheel-to-wheel racing, and he's definitely showcased a very high level of wheel-to-wheel racing, and he definitely will show that this year. But there is still a big worry for me in his arsenal that is that moving under braking that we've seen with Max as well. And when the pressure mounts, you get, in the moment, these drivers, some of them are more reactionary than others, and with what we've seen. And I think the reason, just touching on that move, I think the reason why George was so irate about that move by Charles is because he specifically said, this is what we discussed about before the race.
Yeah.
And I think because the drivers are concerned about the difference in closing speeds when they don't know when someone's going to start clipping and recovering and so forth, they're worried about these potential airplane crashes, and this over-aggressive defence is what George was, well, technically allowed in the rules, seems to have been a driver's gentleman agreement, which is why he was not happy and had a word of him after the race as well.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is, like, if it's really moving under braking, you can look at the telemetry, pretty straightforward case to be made there. But moving in after I've hit my braking zone is different from you've started braking, but I haven't, and I'm still moving. It's a little tricky. But I think the best point here is that, and made by Stuart in the chat, is that he's not only married, he's got a puppy. So, like, I don't see how this is going to be any kind of a problem.
Yeah.
Honestly, long term, but it will get straightened out by the stewards and the race director, if not by the drivers themselves.
We're Team Cat here, by the way, on this panel. Like, Stuffy has a ragdoll. I've got a ragdoll and 2 moggies. You've got 2 moggies, I think, Matt. So we are Team Cat.
Black Cat and Tabby.
Yeah, we're Team Cat. We don't have to pick up poop and put it in a little bag and then walk along with it in our shorts in winter, like all dog owners seem to do. Damn it! What's up? Curses. Who's messaging me? If it's you guys trolling me, isn't it?
No, actually, I haven't tagged you in anything, and I've turned all of my browser's sounds off at the system level.
Curse my popularity. Sorry, I think Stuffy. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the original point that Maria made, and I think as we touched upon in Australia with how buoyant and how Lewis looked very comfortable in that car for this season. I think people are still expecting this to be the Lewis that we saw last year or in the ground effect era cars. And I think if you are a Lewis Hamilton fan, which of course we all are, and many of us are on this podcast,
everyone is.
I think you're going to see a more competitive Lewis this year with Charles. This isn't the same Lewis that really suffered in those ground effect era cars. And I, for one, I do rate Charles. As I said, I had that concern about his driving, but I'm really looking forward to this battle between the two of them this year.
So, by the way, on WhatsApp, because people are saying mute the tab, I can't because that's the tab that I'm playing the messages off of. There's a setting in WhatsApp that specifically says play the sound for group messages or people's statuses. And that last sound was my daughter updating her WhatsApp status. I didn't know people did that.
I love that. So, first off,
yeah,
you're right. We have seen Charles outwit Max. We've seen Charles outwit any number of drivers. And his description of how he's thinking about the battle and the power, even just, after the first Australia race and rather generally, you would tip him to do exceptionally well with this kind of regulation set. As far as Lewis, China, good call. He's done extremely well here. Silverstone, good call. But there are other tracks he does well at. I think he's a fan of Canada. Am I mistaken about that?
Hungary. Not at all. Yeah, Hungary, Canada, Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, so it may come down to being, the circuits Charles is better at and Lewis hates, Charles wins, and vice versa. And that'll be pretty fun and interesting to watch. But I agree, and I may have said it before we even got to the regulation set. These cars and the way they behave when you drive them, the dynamics into and out of corners, make him much happier. And a happy Lewis is, a dangerous Lewis, I'd say.
And even Alex Albon said that as well in one of the
Yeah, I heard
episodes
that.
that he had with Carlos Sainz. He goes, I'm going to say it. I think these cars will suit Lewis. And, well, he's had the pleasure of racing against him when he was in that Mercedes. And if I'm Alex Albon, I would still have a sow, and there'd still be a little bit of me, but it's like, damn you, Lewis, because of those podium positions that he was removed of. But hey-ho.
A couple more, then, to round us off. We've got one about Oscar Piastri.
Hey, Spanners.
Hey.
I reckon that Piastri is going to be so upset still about his crash before the Melbourne Grand Prix that he overdrives even more than usual in China, wears out his tires so fast, and ends up finishing in significantly in the bottom half of the points, like 8th, 9th, 10th, and maybe even out of the points in China.
Yeah, I don't think... I was trying to show mercy, by the way, and include your name so we know who you were. I was trying to show mercy about how bad that crash was. And I think he accepted a fair amount of the blame, but there's pressure because, you know, the nation was behind him. His home race is the first race, Scott, and he's like, wow, I've got to make sure I nail this lap to the grid.
Yeah, going to the point of he'll still be upset about it. Well, he was supposedly and admitted that he was still upset and that the Monza switching of positions affected him for the remainder of the season, which I think
I remember that. Yeah.
Which I think was silly, really, to be honest with you. I mean, if it did, then I think it's something that he should have definitely just got over pretty quickly and gone, okay, all right, well, let's crack on with the rest of the season. But yeah, this will probably affect him more because it's the start of the season. But part of him may also be like, yep, I need to pick myself up here. And sometimes being able to go straight into another race weekend where there's 2 race opportunities for him to just put Australia behind him is the best thing, rather than waiting 2 weeks for another race to come around. And then all of the talk is about in those 2 weeks of what happened. So you can quickly put that behind him, look at what Hadjar did last year in the first race of the season, and look at how he recovered. I think
that was Matt S, by the way, that voice note. Matt,
I was going to say, it worked out pretty well for Hadjar, so it may not be the end of the world.
Yeah. So, look, this is a big sports thing, is that when you cannot do what you think you should be able to do. So a lot of time, you know, you want to hit your big 300-yard drive, 240, or your big topspin forehand or whatever is your go-to sporting thing that defines you. People have that, you know. Is it the slap, the knuckle puck? What is it in the Mighty Ducks where he puts the
slap shot?
He puts the puck up vertical and then hits it. When your go-to move isn't working, you know, what do? You have to scale it back to 75%, 80%. Just make sure you're doing the basics and make it work. Put it back in the court. Get it over the net. Make sure you make those corners. And actually, what you'll probably find is you are very effective at 90%. And this is something that I've gone through with my daughter for auditions. So she'll say, oh, my voice is not quite working today. I've got a little bit of a cold. My throat is sore, or I'm overtired. I've overused it. And I've said, what you have to remember is your 85% in an audition is very impressive. I know you want to nail that 100%, but it reduces the ratio and the probability. And I think when any athlete says they're on a hot streak, or with Ayrton Senna, where he said he was going faster and faster around Monaco, that's the point where you're getting that 85% so right that you can dial it up to 90. You can dial it up to 95. You can then, in those clutch points, pull off those once-in-a-lifetime epic 100%. But it all starts from the 85%. And so if Piastri somehow on his warm-up lap was like, I need to be in the zone, I need to be in my 100% now, and that bit him, the temptation is, let's go out there, believe in yourself. There's a lot of sports psychology which is like, believe in yourself. Yes, it went wrong in there, but keep going 100%, 100%. And I personally believe that all sport is about building from a consistent baseline, and that's where you get that excellence. But, you know, that might just be me because I'm so amazing at sport. I don't know.
Well, as someone who actually did sport.
Oh, you did sport. Did you cycle? Did you cycle once? Are we doing this? We're doing this again.
I did 4 seasons of competitive racing, and I had a racing license, yes. So I think that counts. But also, musically speaking, it's really all the same mindset.
You are top tier as a trumpet player. You are conservatoire trained. We should not disrespect that.
Indeed, I am. But it is a thing. You do not always have, you're not always perfect. And a large part of professionalism is learning to manage and understand what you have and use it as efficiently as possible. So yeah, no, really good musicians are rarely 100%, because there's always, you always keep something in reserve for that moment when you really want to use everything. Yeah.
So you approve of my advice to Vivi?
No, it's absolutely correct. Learning to manage what you have on the day is far more important than just when I have the 100%, I'm great. Because if you're on shows are 8 times a week, man, you are not always going to have the same level when you walk out there. Learning to make it work anyway. That's what being a professional is about.
And I've always said it in relation to sportsmen. It's not necessarily how good your good days are, it's how good are your bad days. That is where sportsmen and teams win championships, they win titles.
Scott, you're a golfer, right?
I was a golfer.
You've been a golf pro. Shut up.
No, I was, but I wasn't at the level of like Tiger Woods.
No, but you know that
otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here right now doing.
But you know, it's the blow up holes that kill most amateur golfers.
Exactly, it's limiting those blowouts, the poor shots. There is something that a quote that always sticks in my mind is Lee Westwood. Some of you may not know about him, but he was a former world number 1, and he was asked, "How did you get to world number 1?" And he said, "I just looked at Tiger Woods, and I saw that his bad days were still better than my good days, and that was like a mindset switch for him in how he went about his.
You've got to cut out the
way that he played, and it's the same with drivers as well. You don't have to attack every single corner. You don't have to be on the limit all the time, and it's the same thing with leading at the front. Like how often we say it's a challenge in itself leading at the front to just not pull away by 20 seconds and manage in case of a scenario that there is a late safety car and so forth. That is a skill in itself, because of course drivers want to go as quick as they can all the time. But Oscar, look, you learn from your mistakes, and I'm sure he said himself that the car delivered more energy to him even though he was on half throttle than he was on full throttle. And that's something that he needs to learn with these cars, and he's unfortunately learned the hard way. And McLaren have, and it's a long season ahead. It's a shame for him. He will be down in the dumps, but he can get straight back on it, and he's got 2 more opportunities this weekend to put that behind him.
There's definitely mitigating circumstances to what happened to Piastri. 100%. 100%. I'm not quite on Jono's thing of like, burn him at the stake, mate, because he felt like let down. But yeah, so I think what we say a lot of the time with the rookies is keep it out the wall. So how often is keeping out of the wall more valuable than getting that very final place in qualifying? I'm sure someone's done the risk reward calculation where you go, if you go at 90%, yes, sometimes you won't get P3 when, instead of P4. So you could go that extra little push and get P3. But actually, if you're P4 most of the time instead of P3 a lot of the time and then crashing twice, that must be a risk reward that the sports psychologists go through with the drivers.
We have much longer seasons now, and consistency is so key. Yes. And this is what exactly we were praising Piastri for until he had that fall off last season.
Yeah.
The reason he had that edge over Lando is exactly that. Lando probably has the higher peak performance.
Yes, and he was pushing.
He was crashing.
Hard. Yeah.
He was crashing, which in a 24 race weekend season is not going to do it for you. And he was fortunate that Oscar had that fall off, because if Oscar kept up the level of consistency that he had throughout the season, he would have comfortably have won that title.
And maybe Piastri, when he felt the pressure coming on after Baku, was like, right, I've got to switch up, I've got to go for it, and stopped doing his baseline 85%, and things started going wrong. Could well be.
Just maybe took the wrong attitude of maybe going, I need to push more, maybe, and rather than keep that level of just thinking consistency and bringing it across the line.
The Chinese Grand Prix for UK viewers is at 7 a.m. So here at Missed Apex Podcast, we're going to watch that. We're going to then go and brush our teeth and have some cornflakes. And then we're going to do our race review at around 10:30 a.m. So join us live on YouTube. Subscribe to Missed Apex F1 on YouTube, and you will see me, Kyle, and Christian Pedersen discussing our immediate reactions to that race. Thank you very much to our patrons who've joined us here for the live chat. We've had a great boost in Patreon support, and it's really, really important to Matt and I that you support us, because then we get to be funded in the same way that the top podcasts are. And so this makes up a big part of me and Matt's freelance schedule, because we're both just self-employed freelance bums. So support us at patreon.com/missedapex. We have capped the rate at $5 per month, which is worth a lot less than when we first started doing this 10 years ago. But we would like more people to come, because you guys who are in the Patreon supporters, join us in the Patreon Discord. And I think it's the loveliest place to discuss F1 during the race and in general. Patreon.com/missedapex, $5 a month. Join our club and support an independent podcast. Support Stuffey, though, because this guy has provided alternative commentary for so many people, for billions and billions of people. Where can we find your live watch-alongs, Stuffey? Do you also do the qualifying and practice? And why haven't I been invited to join you for any of those things?
Yes, I do every single practice session. So I will be up at an ungodly hour. I think 3:30 is when FP1 starts to cover that. But
on your own.
I love it. Yeah, on my own, while everyone in the house is asleep. But no, I absolutely love it. You can follow me in the link, which will be in the show notes below, at Stuffey, STUFFEY, if you're listening via audio. So yeah, join me. I'll be live for every single session this year. And yeah, and similar to exactly how we've created a great community here of Missed Apex.
And the thing about me not being invited to join you for any of those watch-alongs,
we will sort it out.
That's not very committally, Scott.
I'm terrible when it comes to committing stuff. So
Matt's bad as well. Matt Trumpets, you're at MattPT55. Your wife wrote a incredibly salacious and mucky book about the world of F1 in the romance space. I got 2 pages into that book before I went, oh no, that's not for spanners. Let's put a link to the purchase location of that in the show notes as well. But is there any new books on the horizon?
She is engaged in a new project that will result in a new book. I am not sure how much exactly I can say about it, but I can say, for your personal benefit, it is not a mucky romantic book.
Oh, a real book without sexy times.
I would put it in the category of historical fiction about real people, I think I would be okay saying that.
Okay, maybe I can get past page 2 this time. Go and follow Matt at MattPT55. He is on every social media platform that you are on, and make sure you go and follow him. He is chronically underfollowed at MattPT55, but obviously follow me at Spanners Ready. I'm the best one. I would love you to join me on Blue Sky so that we can go and have arguments and debates there. Yes, I'm still on Twitter at Spanners Ready, and I'm getting better at posting photos on Instagram and stuff. So I have come to terms with the fact that I don't, in fact, look like Taylor Lautner from Twilight. And that, yes, I am a somewhat round-faced, Malteser-shaped 45-year-old dad of teenagers. And I'm really enjoying sharing my adventures on Instagram. So go and follow me there. Go and check out the show notes for all the links we've discussed. Follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/missedapex. Join us for the Chinese Grand Prix race review at 10:30 UK time, and make sure that you are subscribing to us both on YouTube and on your podcatcher of choice. Until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. Do you think the boys and girls knew that I'd been to the pub before? I think I got away with it.
I just think, no, I'm not saying it.
Don't tell Mum and Dad.